Hey guys, it's Brooke with the Vintage Gardener. Welcome back to my channel. So today's episode, we're going to be delving into this, which are all of the tulip bulbs that I have ordered. And there's the pooch giving everything the month's over. You like it, boo? Is it good? You ready for spring? Are you gonna help me plant the bulbs? That was the now. So let me get my coffee and we'll be ready to start. Aside from that, let's get into the care and all things you should consider when planting tulips. So first things first is origins, and I know you're probably wondering, why are we going over origins? Because there's one complaint I hear, particularly in New Jersey. I can't speak for the rest of the country, but I know here in New Jersey, the one common complaint I hear from people is about the fact that tulips don't always return. Like, you get a great, spectacular display, and then the next year it's just like, oh my gosh, like half of them, or maybe even less than half of them, came back. And so, you know, the first question people ask is like, well, are these perennials? I thought bulbs are perennials. Well, here's the thing, they are perennials. But perennials is defined as a plant that comes back every year in its native habitat, okay? And so that native habitat part is very important because tulips did not originate in this country. And surprisingly, they did not originate in Holland, which you may not have known because, let's face it, Holland supplies like 80% of the world's tulip supply. So where do they originate? Well, they originated in Central Asia and Turkey. You know, some of them are in mountainous areas and that sort of thing. So what are they used to in those areas? They're used to, you know, hot, dry summers and cold winters. And of course, you know, in the mountain, you're getting snow, so they're getting that moisture. That's what they need. Now here, you know, in the mid-Atlantic region, and I think this is probably true of, you know, the New England area, you know, in terms of cold winters, yeah, we get the cold winters with the snow, so that part we're okay with. The issue, where we have our issue, is that we get a lot more moisture in the summer than tulips are really adapted to handle. So that's the biggest thing. So what are things you can do to perennialize or help your tulips perennialize? One, you might want to check on the type of tulips that you have. There are certain tulips, if I remember correctly, it's like Darwin, hang on, let me just look at this right quick. Like Darwin, I think it's Darwin hybrids, and also Triumph tulips. Those are breeds that actually do perennialize very well. So definitely look into that. The other thing are species tulips. So species tulips are like, you know, the parent of all the modern, you know, tulips. They tend to naturalize pretty well. You know, if you get the right tulip for your area, that's, you know, that's half the battle right there. The other thing is where you plant it. Like, tulips need full sun, so definitely make sure they do that. In terms of soil, once again, you know, they originate in different climate. Their soil is different. Make sure, try to mimic that. You know, because they're used to those hot, dry, you know, summers. You know, what do you do in the East Coast when you get a lot of rain? Well, make sure that your soil is very well draining. Add some sand. Quite frankly, when you're planting your bulbs, if you don't have a lot, you might want to add some vermiculite to kind of give those roots air. You know, keep that, you know, keep the moisture down. Keep that drainage there, and hopefully that helps. You know, that helps with it. So the reason I'm planting my tulips in my promenade bed is because the promenade bed of all the places in my yard has the most sand. It's very sandy in those two sections. I'm not really sure why, but that should keep the tulips happy, because that area is very hard to keep watered. A lot of plants that I've put in there, especially the ones that need water, like for example, I did some cherry sparks, beard's tongue. They really struggle. As a matter of fact, the beard's tongue all died, every single one of them, because the watering, even though I was watering it every other day, it just wasn't happy with the amount of water. But I did actually accidentally unearth some of the tulip bulbs when I was, you know, using my auger, and they looked really good. The bulbs weren't rotted. They didn't look like they had any fungus. They seemed pretty happy. So I'm hoping when I add all these 1,000 bulbs in there, I should get, you know, hopefully like maybe 2. I'm hoping to get 3 years of, you know, 3 years of comebacks before they really, really start petering out. And the thing is, guys, even if you do all this, you know, you may not, you're going to notice fewer and fewer bulbs coming back, but at least it won't be like you planted 1,000 your first year and then the next year you only had 100. That's what you're trying to stave off. Okay, so those are the things to keep in mind. Now, in terms of other things to do to help your tulips when you plant them, they don't necessarily need bone meal when you're planting them, because, you know, when you're getting those bulbs in the mail, you know, they've taken care of those bulbs. Those bulbs at that point have all the nutrition they need to bloom for the following year. Now the next year, once they come out and they bloom, wait till the petals come off, cut the stalks back, leave the greenery up until the greenery actually dies. While the leaves are up, it's going to be soaking up that sun, getting that energy to the bulb, so that it can, you know, sprout the next year. The other thing you might want to do is in the fall, give it some bone meal. Actually, you know, you probably could give it bone meal, you know, after it's finished blooming, because that's the time when it's really setting up for the next thing. But, you know, at some point after it blooms, definitely give them some bone meal, and, you know, experiment with it. See if it does better if you give it to them immediately after blooming, or if you wait until August, if that's sufficient. And yeah, and just watch the watering. You know, with tulips, it may be, you know, prudent that if you want tulips, like have an area designated specifically for tulips, amend that soil to make it drain more freely, grow other plants in there that has similar watering needs. Because one thing with tulips is that you don't really, once it blooms, like you don't want to keep watering it during the summer. You want to you do want it to dry out and kind of mimic those dry conditions that it would naturally have. So those are some things to keep in mind with how to keep your tulips coming back. Okay, so next topic is design. So with tulips, tulips have, you know, early blooming, mid blooming, late blooming, and all of those things are going to be relative to where you live, because obviously in southern New Jersey, my tulips are going to start blooming much earlier than, for example, somebody who lives in Massachusetts. So it's relative. Also, it's relative depending upon whether or not you're in a microclimate. And the reason I say that is because last year, one thing I was noticing is a lot of other people's tulips had already bloomed and mine hadn't even started. And even on my own property where I had the tulips, one side of my driveway bloomed, and then it was like weeks before the other side started. So it's just one of those things, it happens. But, you know, if you want to increase the blooms, the bloom length, like, you know, how, you know, get different types, get some early, some mid, and some late, so that way you have several weeks of things blooming. And of course, like I said, if you've got microclimates even on your property, then that's also going to help extend the bloom season of your tulips. So then the other thing is design. Like, you know, if you want to do them in pots, you might want to try some lasagna, you know, planting, like layer it with other bulbs. You could also layer it with itself so that you have like a really full bouquet kind of look. If I have time, I'll get I do have some empty planters that I could try to do that with, so you guys can see what it is that I mean when I say lasagna. Actually, you know what? I want to say that last year I did a lasagna pot with that look with some daffodils. I just think the daffodils didn't have enough chill to actually make it work, but it's the same concept. I'll try to link the video, but more likely than not, I'm just going to do a new video with that. When it comes to, you know, putting them in your yard, you can try to do drifts, you know, with some people will do trenching. Actually, I think more cut flower farmers do trenching, where they basically excavate down 6 inches, make it wide, and plant them touching one another. they do that because it helps give longer stem lengths so that they can cut them for bouquets. I've seen some people who've taken biodegradable egg cartons, and put the little tulips in each, egg slot, and planted that to get a certain look. You can do something more naturalized, where basically, kind of like take the bulbs and just throw them, and wherever they land is where you plant them. That's kind of more what I'm going to be doing, because my promenade beds have a lot of plants there, so I can't be like linear and be like, okay, I'm going to space these every 6 inches, because I'm going to be hitting plants every which way. Now, I was planning to do like 500 pink. I think I was thinking of like doing like Angelique, because that's one of my favorite pink tulips, and then getting just a basic white one. And I changed my mind after seeing Misha from Farm Lux, because she plants a lot of tulips. She has at least 40, 50, if not more, varieties of tulips, all different colors. And although, planting a lot of one or two things can make an impact, what she had made a freaking huge impact. So I decided to go with more varieties of pink and white tulips, and so hopefully that'll increase the bloom, session. So it'll help, because it'll be mid, early, and late, but also just kind of give you a different look. I personally am I'm not going to alternate them like pink, white. I'm going to mix all the bulbs as much as I can to get them really, I guess homogenized maybe is a good word for it. But it's going to be, when the pink or white comes up, you're not going to know which it is. I'm just going to mix it all up and just plant them, so it's just going to be kind of random, and I think it'll look really nice. So that's something to keep in mind when you're designing your tulip spread. Related to design is, how many bulbs do you actually need? So with a tulip bulbs, you can, it really depends upon the look you're going for. So if you're going for something that looks more like the flower show, then you're probably going to want to plant them 9 inches apart, which you can do. Or for example, like I said, if you're a flower farmer and or not even that, if you just want to do a cut garden and you just want to have long stems, then you would probably do 9 per square foot. Whereas if you just want to have like a normal, a nice looking bouquet, you can do 5 per square foot. I'm doing less than those because, like I said, I've got a large, I have a lot of plants in that very large area. So my promenade beds are 3,200 square feet each, so that's a total of 640. So if I were going to do, for example, like if I just wanted to do this area for like, cut flowers, or if I was going to do this out in front of a business as a display, then I would do 9 per square foot. And at 9 per square foot, I would need 5,760. So that's 5,760 bulbs. If I was going to do more of just a thick bouquet look, then I would do 5, and that would be 3,200. So as you can see with 1,000, it's, I could be jam packing a lot more in there. But like I said, I have other plants. And the thing is, putting 500 on each side, I think I probably planted a couple hundred last year, and at the front of the beds, I think I did it a little bit more concentrated, but it looked great. It didn't look like, oh my goodness, you need some more. I personally thought I needed more, but I don't think, when I took pictures of it and posted on, places, like nobody said, oh my gosh, you need a lot more. So, but 500, that's just going to be a lot. So it's going to look a lot more full than, it's just going to look full. And of course, other things are going to start coming up. I'll be putting poppies and that sort of thing in there. And so I think it's going to be a lot of greenery in that section. So you won't notice that, I could have basically, tripled, or, I don't even know what the word is for if you do something 5 times. I could have easily tripled the amount of bulbs that I put in there, and it's still been fine. So that's how many you need. So the next thing we would need to go on to is pests, because here in New Jersey, one thing we have to deal with are voles, moles, and squirrels eating the bulbs. So tulips are not toxic like daffodils unfortunately. It'd be nice if they were, because then we wouldn't have this issue. But there's a few things you can do. I personally find that I have more of an issue with squirrels than anything. When I first moved into this house, I planted a couple hundred and the squirrel ate most of them. So last year, one thing that I changed, and I noticed next spring, I only had like a couple dug up, and you know, they were left after they were dug up, and they were dug up after they sprouted. So that was really good. But the first thing I did is I planted later. We've had some really cold weather. We've had some killing frost here. And so animals are really going into hibernation. So, you know, usually animals try to fatten up before they go into hibernation, but at this point you're probably okay. And so that was the one thing I did last year. I waited until much later to plant them, and I think it did a lot better. One suggestion I think I heard on You Bet Your Garden is that squirrels notice if the ground is disturbed. So, you know, when you're planting, make sure you cover the holes, make sure you kind of make the area look like nothing had been done in it. And so last year I definitely did that. I made sure I smoothed the mulch back over so that you couldn't tell that I had planted anything there. And like I said, until they sprouted, nothing got eaten. The other thing I did is that I used, I think it's Repulsal. I think it's by Perennialize. I did granules last year, but this year I have too many bulbs, so I'll get the liquid spray and I'll just spray down the area. But Repulsal, it makes the bulbs taste nasty, and so they leave things alone. So once again, my issue is squirrels, which dig, so the Perennialize granules worked very well. If I had voles and moles and that sort of thing, things that kind of dug under the ground, I probably would have to put something in each hole. I don't have voles and moles because I have a big pine tree that's on that side of my house, and there's these three huge, I don't know if they're vultures or whatnot, but you know, I don't have bats around my place either because they eat those, and quite frankly, I'm pretty sure they eat the voles too. So once again, for me, it's only squirrels, but everybody else is going to be different. Okay, so those are all the care topics I had to talk about. So let's talk about the bulbs I got. So I got some from Flag's Garden Center, I got some from Lowe's, and I got some from Color Blends and Van England. So with the ones from Van England and Color Blend, they come in these mesh bags like this. I'm going to keep the bags. I'm just going to keep them because, you know, especially if I start dividing stuff, and, you know, because I'm part of horticultural societies, like sometimes people have things where you can like come and dig your own plant. These will be invaluable for that sort of thing. So I had a couple of shipments. There's boxes everywhere, as you can see from the beginning of the video. So I'll start with the ones I got from Flag's Garden Center. So this one is called Mystic Van Eijk, and it is a Darwin hybrid. It's a mid-spring bloom. This one is winter hardy from zones 2 to 8. Outside of 8, you're gonna have to pull them and give them a chill period because you just don't get cold enough. So it's, yeah, I grew some of these last year. They were very, very pretty. It's considered to be a single tulip. I really like it. It's definitely one you should keep in your garden. And I'm trying to remember how big this one gets. This one gets about 20 inches tall. Okay, so they got 50 of those. Okay, and so then I got some Angelique Tulips. I got 60 of these. This is what is referred to as a peony flowering tulip. Back in, I think it was, I'm trying to think, was it 2012? I remember I was walking around in like Collingswood, which is the section that's got like all these like Victorian era houses, and this woman had these, you know, the tulips, and they looked like peonies, but they were too early, and so she said that it was called a peony tulip. And so when I started buying tulips, this was one of the first type I got, and it was a hit. I loved it, and ever since then, this is just one of those ones I love having in every garden that I have. So if you have not tried Angelique, try it. Like I said, it's got a really full head, beautiful cut flower. So you cannot go wrong with Angelique. Okay, so I'm not going to pull the other ones out because basically a tulip is a tulip is a tulip, and the other ones don't have pictures on them. So I'm just going to talk about them, and I'm going to flash a picture up, either replace myself or I'll put it, you know, on one side of me. Okay, so with some of the pink ones, I got, let's see, first off is Candy Club. Candy Club is, as you can see from the picture, is ivory white with pale pink feathering and pinkish lilac edges that deepen and vary in intensity as the beguiling blooms mature. It's tulip class multi-flowering, which is a bouquet. So basically what it means is that each stem has more than one bloom on it. So that gets about 18 inches and it's hardy to between zones 3 and 8. Okay, then I got Dreamland. So Dreamland is a 4-time award winner. It has a rosy red exterior, flamed creamy white with a rose interior and a white base. The tulip class is single late. And so that means it's going to bloom maybe in May. Some of these descriptions from Van England, I take it with a grain of salt because they're in Connecticut. So I don't, you know, for me that might be, it might be earlier than that. It's hardy from zones 3 to 8 and it gets 24 inches. So that's going to be a nice one. And the next up is Green Wave, I think it's what it's called. Hang on for a second, I forgot to write the name down. Yeah, Green Wave Tulip. And so Green Wave Tulip it was award winning in the 1970s. It's rose pink with an ivory white base. Actually, I take that back. That is not the right one. I'm reading the wrong description. Hang on for a second. I'm sorry. It's called Fancy Frills. That's the one. Okay, so Fancy Frills is rose pink with an ivory white base, ivory white flames, and rose white crystalline fringe. The tulip class is fringed or crispa. It's a late blooming one, and it's only hardy from 3 to 7. So for me, probably I get enough cold for it to come back, but maybe iffy. Okay, then I got Happy Family, which is a lustrous rose pink with slightly paler petal edges. The tulip class is multi-flowering, and it's hardy from zones 3 to 8, and it gets 20 inches tall. And I notated on this one that each stem gets 4 flowers. So that I can't wait for that. That's gonna, you know, obviously it's going to look nice and big and bushy. So can't wait to see that one next year. Okay, so then now let's talk about Green Wave. So Green Wave is probably, they said on the description, is the most prized of all cut tulips. It's a sport of the tulip Greenland. It's got pale mauve pink with green flames and an exterior white base. And it opens very wide. And so it's one of the latest blooming tulips. It's a garden designer's and floral arranger's dream. It's tulip class parrot, and it's hardy from zones 4 to 7, and it gets 20 inches tall. Yeah, and I'm just trying to think of how to, like, tulips have different classes, like Fringe Tulip, there's lily flowering ones, you know, the Peony flowering ones, doubles, and I can't even, the lily flower ones, the petals have a point to them. The fringe ones, it's just like very feathery at the edges, whereas the parrot, it's, they're like kind of like bicolored, and they kind of, they are kind of frilly petals, but it's like a deeper frill, if that makes any sense. Well, I have the pictures up there, so hopefully that makes sense from what you've seen. Okay, so then another one that I got from Van England is Spring Green. It's ivory white with soft green feathering and light green anthers. And it's perfect planted among unfurling ferns, hossas, and verdant summer perennials in a spa-like garden sanctuaries. Tulip class is green or viridiflora. It also is late, and it gets about 20 inches. And it's hardy from zones 3 to 7. So that's what I got from Van England. And then with color blends, I got White Cubed. And so White Cubed has 3 different types of tulips. They didn't specify which ones, but they're early, mid, and late. So I think, unfortunately, I'm going to have a lot of, I don't know. With the White Cube, there's some early in there. I think with the rest of them, I think what's going to happen is I'm going to have a smattering of white in the beginning, and then it looks like I'm going to have a lot of pink in the middle, you know. So I didn't plan that out as well as I thought, but I think, actually, you know what? I think I did plan it better, but when I'm looking at my receipt, one thing I noticed from Van England is that there were 2 types of pink. There was 2 types of pink that they sold out, and I think those may have been mid and early ones, and so I don't have those. So next year, I guess I have to like order much earlier in the year to get the stuff that I want. So anyway, guys, that's the 1,000 bulbs that I got. I'm looking forward to starting the planting. I need to go find a container so I can start mixing up the tubers. It's not the tubers, the bulbs. And, you know, the weather's supposed to be nice, so maybe what I can do is, you know, in the evenings just run out, and even if I plant like, you know, 50 an evening, you know, until I get to Saturday, and then Saturday go hog wild, you know, then, you know, I'll get it done just a little bit at a time. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.